Welcome to the Dose of Good podcast, where we celebrate good people and organizations working to make the world a better place. It can be easy to get caught up in the bad things going on in the world and forget about the good happening all around us each and every day. I'm your host, Erin, and I want to share these stories with you and give them the attention they deserve. I hope this podcast educates and inspires you and maybe even motivates you to share a dose of good in your community. Now let's get into today's episode. Today's episode features New Hampshire Family Voices. And as far as I know, Family Voices is a national organization, but this is kind of the New Hampshire branch of it. And it is a great resource for New Hampshire families with children with health conditions, disabilities, to kind of navigate all the different areas that they may need to navigate to best help support their child. And I speak with Sylvia Pelletier, who is the director at New Hampshire Family Voices. And it was great getting to learn about this organization and all the work that they do to help families. It's a great resource available to people if you maybe didn't know about it or you know someone who could benefit from it. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and learning more about New Hampshire Family Voices. Today I'm here with Sylvia Pelletier, the director of New Hampshire Family Voices. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk about New Hampshire Family Voices.
Oh, you're welcome. Could you start off by just telling us what New Hampshire Family Voices is and what the mission is?
Sure. So New Hampshire Family Voices is New Hampshire's family-to-family health information center, which tells you absolutely nothing, right? So our goal really is to make sure that families who have children with special healthcare needs or disabilities and the professionals who work with them have the information and the resources they need to make informed decisions and to access the services they need for their child and family. So we basically work directly with families and those professionals to make sure they have what they need.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And I did find out that the majority of your staff are individuals or family members with lived experience. Why is this important?
It's somewhat unique, I think, at New Hampshire Family Voices, and it's really important to us. It's one thing to know about the services and all the systems in New Hampshire and how confusing they can be to navigate, so to be able to point families in the right direction. It's another thing entirely to have experience navigating them. So a lot of times we'll get families with newly diagnosed children and they're not sure. Some professionals have given them a bunch of phone numbers to call and they're not even sure what those locations can do for them. Mm-hmm. So talking to another parent on the other end of the line who's had a similar experience almost always results in a breath of, oh, yeah. I can just ask the questions or I can talk or I don't have to answer all these questions today. What's the priority I have for my family? So there's a really, there's an extra value add, I think, in reaching out to somebody who's been there in the trenches. And it doesn't matter if our child's diagnosis is different or their age is different. They just have some common experiences. And I think that's what truly binds staff to one another and to the families we serve.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that, they're probably feeling a bit overwhelmed with trying to navigate all of that and then to be able to speak to someone that they feel like understands or has been there. I can imagine that's very valuable.
Yeah,
so
we jokingly say, it matters when somebody on the other end of the line just gets it.
Yeah, exactly.
So whether it's a good day and you're sharing a small success for your child, or you're just really frustrated and you've called 10 places and nobody's been able to answer your question, or you just don't know where to start.
Sure.
Knowing that other person on the other end of the line has probably had a similar experience at one point in time matters.
Yeah, definitely. And could you speak about, so I don't know if this is appropriate, but do you have like programs and services that you offer to people I know you kind of help people navigate, but there are also services that you offer, correct?
There are. I mean, I think our primary thing is making sure everybody has what they need to
Sure.
find what they need. So,
Yeah.
whether they're calling or they're emailing or they're messaging us. But we do have a number of areas of focus that we focus on at New Hampshire Family Voices. So we have some specific projects that focus on early childhood. So we have staff that make sure that providers in the community and families know about developmental screening so that children are identified early and get connected to the services they need. We have areas of focus on transition to make sure that children stay connected to healthcare and are able to as independently as is possible, participate in their care so that as they become young adults, they know how to, access the health care and the services that they need for themselves. We have a lot of supports for families who are of school age through we sit physically within the Parent Information Center, so connect to our peers on that side to make sure families are navigating the school systems effectively. I think we do a number of trainings and workshops to make sure that families have a number of materials that we develop to share those pieces of information. I think one of the things I'm most proud of are our efforts in youth and family engagement. So we have a youth council that's
Okay.
comprised of all youth who have disabilities, who really inform all of our youth-facing work to make sure that we're right on, because nobody but a youth will tell you, oh, that's not a good picture,
Right,
or
right.
I wouldn't say it like that, or if you
Yeah.
want to reach youth, you better do it this way and not that.
Okay.
And families, right? So other families who are actively working in the system right now or navigating the system, we really rely on them to help us to say, what's working in the community? What's not working in the community? Is this change that's being proposed really going to feel like an improvement? So we do a lot of work in youth and family engagement that we really value very highly at PIC and Family Voices.
Oh, great. And I also saw that you have a New Hampshire Family Voices library where families who work with you can go for resources and things like that.
My staff person, Sam Collier, would be so happy to hear you talk about the libraries. It's Sam's favorite thing. And when I started, ironically, at Family Voices, it was one of my tasks too. The library has almost 3,000 materials in it,
Wow.
totally free for families to search on our website or professionals. They can borrow them just by clicking on the website and ordering them, putting them in a cart, and then they show up in the mail
That's
with a
awesome.
postage-paid return envelope. So when they're
Wow.
done, they can return them. We're really proud, and Sam does a great job at looking for new materials every year, a lot of children's books. And so we try to find materials on rare conditions or the experience of living with a condition, which is important not only for classmates and siblings to understand what their sibling might have, but also for families, to use to explain to grandparents or aunts and uncles about their child's condition. So we have a lot of books on specific disabilities for children.
How did you become involved with New Hampshire Family Voices? And could you tell us a little bit about what your role entails?
So I came to Family Voices like many of my other staff have come to Family Voices. I was a mom taking care of young children, 2 of whom had cancer. I was looking for who was an organization that could be of support and had talked to Martha Jean Madison and Terry Olson Martin, who were the previous co-directors, for guidance and support in navigating. I run a nonprofit in my side gig as a volunteer, and at the time we were looking to create a newsletter. And I reached out to New Hampshire Family Voices because they have a flagship newsletter called Pass It On, and I was on the mailing list. I said, hey, I'm looking to do one for the Childhood Cancer Lifeline. Could you help me figure that out? And Martha Jean Madison was incredibly gracious and helped us to get our first newsletter off the ground, and in the process said, are you working? Would you be interested in a part-time job? And so
Oh.
I joined in 1999 as a resource specialist in a very part-time role. I was afforded the opportunity to take my lived experience and my education and have new roles and take on new responsibilities. And 2 years ago, I became the director. And as one might imagine, in a director position, I do a lot of grant writing and reporting and hiring and supervising of staff. But I still have the opportunity to participate in meetings and to work with families and to amplify youth and family voice at policy and program tables across the state.
That's wonderful. And I was going to ask you about the newsletter that New Hampshire Family Voices does because I found that on your site. And not only does it look beautiful, but I wanted to see, how that is helpful to people, I guess. So,
So Pass It On, as I mentioned, Martha Jean Madison was her brainchild, and she did a fabulous job with that for years. She retired several years ago, and so the graphic design is now held by our graphic design person. Her name's Kim, and that's a resource shared across the Parent Information Center and New Hampshire Family Voices. So the newsletter is created by staff across the whole agency.
Okay.
So they work together. They talk about, what are topics that are of interest for families around navigating early childhood and education and access and I think recreation and healthcare. So they come together and they develop or they identify topics and then pull together this resource. The goal really is to make sure there's something in the newsletter for a family, regardless of their child's disability or age,
Okay.
that touches on the things that matter to us as families, right?
Sure.
Our ability to participate in the community. So, it might be accessible recreation opportunities, navigating school experiences. I think our next issue we'll talk about, extended school year and programs and what those opportunities look like. We always include something from a youth or family perspective and try to also include things that really speak to fostering independence in our young people,
Sure.
regardless of their level of disability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think, a labor of love across the agency to make sure that content is included.
Do you have any volunteer opportunities available? If so, what are those opportunities?
We have pretty limited opportunities for
Okay.
volunteerism. We have a library director, a retired library director, who helps us with our library occasionally. We have opportunities both in our youth and family engagement often to bring together youth and families to talk about those experiences that I just referenced earlier. Our youth council, our YA council,
Okay.
is always looking for 14 to 26-year-olds to join to talk about their experience as a young person with a disability and how they would like systems, families, providers to know and help them to navigate those systems. And parents are the same thing. We often have opportunities for family engagement on councils or in needs assessment work or focus group where we're really looking to hear from families who are navigating the systems and, what's working, what's not working. And I think those voices are what make things better. It's a stump I live on. I don't believe systems ever really improve or change unless the people using them say so.
Sure.
And so to the degree possible, that's where we look for volunteer opportunities of families willing to generously share their time and their input to help to make the system better for all families.
When it comes to families who seek out New Hampshire Family Voices and seek their support, in your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges that these families are facing today?
We did help the Title V program with their needs assessment, their 5-year needs assessment last year, and I was surprised, or wasn't surprised. The number one issues that families were experiencing were access to the services they needed.
Oh,
Right, so there were long wait lists. Families reported long wait lists for getting things like occupational therapy or speech therapy or physical therapy for their child, accessing developmental evaluations, long times for like application processes so just some barriers in terms of the burden of the paperwork or times it took to make decisions that families were reporting. We had a number of families talk about the changes in their insurance networks in terms of the number of providers available to them or the wait list because of that. So we've had families really concerned about access to services, including, hiring staff or shortages of nurses. I think families have really struggled with those pieces. I thought that financing of services would be the next highest, but actually next it was quality of life, family having concerns about the ability to participate in the community with their children with disabilities in a like manner as other families. So just looking for things that allowed them to live a whole, full life with their family. And so pretty moving, things to
Yeah.
hear from families. But we were not surprised at the survey. It's the kind of thing we hear about all the time. Families work so hard to make sure that they have what their children need and what they need. And so it's a lot of time and working to find those resources. So we weren't surprised to hear that those were the primary concerns for families.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know your organization is doing a lot, but can probably only do so much. So I hope that maybe with a collaboration or up at the State House or something that it can, some changes can be made to make those things easier for families.
I think one of the unique parts about Family Voices is we're co-located with the Bureau of Family-Centered Services, and we
Okay.
sit on a lot of advisory councils and committees and work closely with other partner organizations who are hearing the same things from families. So I think we work together to amplify those experiences and voices of families. And so when we have a chance, we sit at the table and say, we've heard 5 calls from families this week saying they're looking for this. Where are the opportunities to address those things? Is it a
Right.
recent policy change? Did something change that's making this more difficult, or is it something we need to have our eye on for changes that may need to occur in the
Sure.
next funding cycle should money be available?
Right. That makes sense. Throughout the year, it sounds like maybe you're not an organization that has to do this, but I just like to make sure that there aren't any events or fundraisers that you like to promote that happen throughout the year.
We don't do a lot of fundraising.
Okay.
We're mostly grant funded. We do have people make donations, including donations of books, and people make donations through the website. Events, absolutely. We do trainings for families. And last weekend, we held our first in-person conference since the pandemic.
Oh, nice.
So it was so nice to have youth and families together for a transition-focused conference. It was a Pick New Hampshire Family Voices collaborative opportunity. And it was something our staff just thoroughly enjoyed to have youth and families together. We used to do a large annual conference every year. So we're hopeful to be able to do more of these in-person events in addition to our virtual trainings and our virtual caregiver conversations and those things. And of course, all of those opportunities are either on our website or on our social media promoted to families directly.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you. We've gone through things pretty thoroughly, but also pretty quickly. But is there anything else you'd like to share about New Hampshire Family Voices or that you want people to know about it?
We're here. I think, sometimes we hear from families, I didn't know about you. How come no one told us you existed, right? So I think sometimes we're the best kept secret in the state.
Yeah.
If you don't have a child with a disability or a special health care need or a chronic health condition, you might not have heard of New Hampshire
Right,
Family
yeah.
Voices. But if you are or work with a family and aren't sure how we can be of support, please don't hesitate to reach out. Look on the website, check out the library, contact us to see how any of our resource specialists can help you.
Yeah. Good for people to know, because I know I personally wasn't familiar with you, and just in searching different organizations, you came up. So I'm glad that we can hopefully let more people know about New Hampshire Family Voices.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then I just have 3 final questions that I ask everybody. The first being, can you share a story about someone whose life has been transformed by your work?
I think the most impactful thing speaks to youth and family engagement, which is something we believe so powerfully. So we do a lot of work. And one of the projects I had the privilege of being involved in early in my career was practice-based improvement. So working with a pediatric practice to improve processes for their families who have children with disabilities. We were working with a practice, and one of our requirements was that they identified a parent partner. And so the practice, initially hemmed and hawed, and who are we going to identify? And so they brought to the table a parent partner who at the time had a daughter who was about 1 or 1.5 years old and medically very complex. And this was a mom who hadn't participated in any of these kinds of things before, and so was a little anxious coming to the table. Today, that parent sits on the board of directors for the Parent Information Center.
Wow.
I have watched the growth of this parent because she was invited to a table and told that what she had to say and contribute was important. She was believed in. Her participation was valued. New Hampshire Family Voices provided the mentorship, and she has been an active participant in a number of quality improvement initiatives through New Hampshire Family Voices for years prior to taking this role at the Parent Information Center on the board. Her daughter is now 24, on our youth council, and one of our most confident advocates for a youth perspective. She participated in the development with the other council members of what content we were going to offer in the conference last week. She participated actively in some of the sessions, providing her feedback, including one where she and her mom honestly and actively shared what it meant to foster independence and how there can be a bit of push you and pull me kind of thing that happens between mothers and children and the teen years. And we're so gracious in their desire to share that. for me, those things are the things that stand out. You know, when you invest in youth and families and empower them to share their voice, not just to improve things for themselves, but then to step forward to share that knowledge and make it easier or better for other youth and families, those are the outcomes that matter most to me.
Yeah. It sounds like it was impactful in many ways, not only for that woman and her daughter, but everyone else who was involved as well. So, and then if you could just recommend another nonprofit or an individual doing great things in their community to have on a future episode.
Well, I could give you a long list because I've been doing this work for a very long time. So I also run the Childhood Cancer Lifeline of New Hampshire in my total volunteer time. So that's a
Okay.
childhood cancer organization that serves New Hampshire families. I mentioned the Parent Information Center, so we sit fiscally within that agency. And they do work around special education in all those processes. I was honored last night as one of WZID's 20 outstanding
Were
women.
you? Congratulations.
So there
That's
are
so exciting.
19 other organizations that
Yeah.
would be a great place for you to look at as other nonprofits that are worthy and other women leaders who are
Yeah.
making a difference in New Hampshire. But we work with fabulous, dedicated people all across the state every day, making a difference in the lives of children and families. And so there are a host of them that
All right.
would be worthy participants.
Well, good to know. Well, I'll check those particular ones out that you mentioned and then also check who the recipients were for those awards and see if any of them would be a good fit as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And the final question is, what does kindness mean to you? And can you share an example of kindness that you've either personally experienced or that you've witnessed happening?
Kindness is really doing things in a way that are caring, with respect for others, without anything expected in return. I witness kindness every day in our staff and how they respond to other families, with how well families support one another in social media groups around specific conditions and disabilities, and how they support one another with I don't need this equipment anymore, or I don't need this anymore. Does somebody else, can they need it? Can they use it? Can they make use of it? Or sharing information about how they've navigated a circumstance that might help another family. I'm so grateful, right, to be witness to those good things every day in the world. And I think for the most part, people are really good and kind to one another and supporting each other in this journey, parenting a child with a disability.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you, but also I think it's wonderful that you get to experience that every day and have that reminder of the good in the world. And I think more people sometimes need that reminder that there are good people, there are good things happening every day, and they're just, going about what they do, but not necessarily doing it loudly, whereas you hear so much of the negative is very loud. So that's why it's important that these stories are shared and the good positive stuff is shared as well. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for giving the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for watching and listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed learning about New Hampshire Family Voices. Thank you so much to Sylvia for being on the episode and educating us about all that they do. I hope that you will check them out as a resource. Make sure to share this episode so as many people can learn about them as possible. As always, follow Dose of Good Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, please subscribe on YouTube. Leave a rating and review where you listen to podcasts. Also, if you can subscribe to the podcast, that really helps me out to just get the podcast more known, reach more people so that they can have a dose of good in their day. Because as I've said before, but is still so true, we can all use more good and positivity in our day. So go out there, spread kindness, do something good for somebody else, and I'll be back soon with another episode.